if you're broke and you're in your 30s, the first thing is that there needs to be an acknowledgement that something hasn't gone right. There's obviously been a series of decisions in your life which have led you to be in a situation where you're not where you need to be, and you're already in your 30s and you're finding life is just basically flying by. I'm in my 30s now and I've been able to have great success in my life, but when I reflect back, there's been so many mistakes, so many lessons learned, and many things that if I could have, I would have done differently if I simply had the information to make more informed decisions. So in this video, I want to talk a bit about if I was able to press the reset button to get ahead of things coming into my 30s, what would I have done to put myself in a better situation overall? Now, the first thing is I would have made sure that I had a very, very highly leveraged skill that would be able to surpass things such as the AI boom, that would be able to put me in a position where no matter what, I was known as one of the best in my craft at one particular thing. Now, this was a decision that I did make in my life and has actually set me up very, very well, which was dedicating my whole entire life to mastering sales, especially within the tech and the software space. More recently, I've transitioned into the coaching and info space, but most of my career has been in software and in tech. Now, being a sales leader and a salesperson who's achieved many, many things within that space, it meant that I got to a point of mastery, which made me in very, very high demand when I needed to, for example, seek out roles, when I needed to make sure that I was able to earn well. I just dedicated myself to that skill. I gave up a full scholarship study in corporate law to be able to pursue a career in sales. And that has set me up for my whole entire life. Now, you need to ask yourself, if you're in your 30s right now, let's say, for example, you're working in a restaurant. Let's say, for example, you're operating in a pretty mundane role that's not really serving you well financially, not really serving you well mentally or emotionally. Now is the time for change, right? You can only exceed the you can't exceed the limitations of the vehicle or the industry that you're in. So for example, if you're a waiter in a restaurant, you're only ever going to be able to earn a certain amount of money because that particular set of skills and that particular segment will have a limit on what you can get paid. Whereas if, for example, you're in sales, if, for example, you work in tech or in particular segments of healthcare, there's no upper limit to what you're able to earn or what you're able to drive for your life and your career. So what that then means is that you've taken yourself as an individual and you've basically put a cap on yourself if you're working in an industry that is going to cap your earnings and cap your earning potential. So you need to be in a space and in a segment that you have unlimited earning potential, right? That's the only way that you're going to set yourself up for wealth, for riches, and to be able to push your life forward. You can't have a cap on where you're able to go in your life. And so the first steps that you need to take is if you are in an industry or a segment which does have a cap, now is the time to pivot. That might mean that you're working 9 to 5 and then between 5 and 9, you need to study. You need to study a skill set such as sales. You need to think about how can you break into artificial intelligence, get into recruitment, get into something where you can get paid significantly more for every individual hour of your time, and start studying it, start learning it. And then from that, you'll form a foundation to set up the next steps. Now, the next step is to then get some actual work experience within that space or segment. It might be work experience or it might be getting mentorship within that space or that segment that you choose. As mentioned multiple times, for me, it's always been in sales. So one of the biggest hacks that I had was getting mentorship and getting work experience within that particular segment. When I came to realize that it was going to be a sales career I was going to pursue, the first thing I did was start reaching out to people on LinkedIn, reaching out to people in my network, and finding out who was it that was in this space that had connections, that had experience, that had people that I could and should be speaking to. Who are the movers and the shakers? And then I found ways to offer myself to be helpful to those people by saying, hey, I'd love to be able to sit down and grab a little bit of time of yours. What can I take off your plate in exchange for that? What can I offer? Is there something that I can do for you to make your life easier in exchange for that time? And after knocking down countless amounts of doors, I was finding myself getting into those coffee conversations. And one of those conversations led to my first ever sales role. And then I was basically barely ever had to ever apply for another sales role throughout my career, because it was through my network I was then able to continue to get future roles. I was constantly being headhunted, and it all started from those early days of being able to basically put myself out there to have those coffee conversations. And so the next phase here is all about networking. It's all about getting mentorship and trying to learn and be able to speed run your journey from people who have already done it, who have already experienced it, and can then walk you into rooms and walk you into doors that you don't currently have access to. So if you think about where we are right now, you're in this scenario where you're making this transition from an area or an industry where you've got a cap on your earnings. You've committed to making the transition to one where you don't have a cap. You've now started going out there, knocking on doors, breaking down barriers with people who are in the industry, in the market, and slowly, you're starting to now build a name for yourself. At this point, it's all about getting yourself in a position where you commit to the role, you find your first role, or you've been able to basically get yourself in a situation where you've gotten a job within this segment. And now it's all about both skill acquisition, building wealth, and networking, right? And so you're actually in the role now. You've just got to stack those three things. And as you do that, you need to constantly push for promotions each and every year, right? As quickly as you can, right? Don't be in a situation where you're on defense mode when it comes to getting promoted and you're sitting back waiting. No, you need to become as valuable to the company as possible. And at every opportunity you can, ask for more, push for more. What additional tasks can I take on? How can I get promoted? What more do you need to see from me? Can I communicate better? What else can I take off of your plate? How can I make your life easier? These are the things you want to be asking of the exec team, of the management team. Constantly make yourself a valuable resource and a valuable asset to the business, and then push for more income as you do that. And as you continue to do that over time, you'll build and compound your overall reputation within the company. You'll build your reputation within the industry and within the segment, because you'll be surprised. News travels fast. Industries are much smaller than you would think. And when you start to build a name for yourself as someone who's helpful, as someone who's valuable, and more importantly, someone who delivers results, you'll be able to compound and grow your career faster than you can ever imagine. I didn't always get on with everyone throughout my career, but the way I was always able to push forward was I was number one. I always had the best performance. I was in first, I stopped last, and I constantly broke down barriers. And so even if I didn't get on with absolutely everyone, my performance ended up becoming my CV, and I was able to build a phenomenal career simply by being the best, right? It never goes outdated to be number one in your career and to be number one in your path, right? And so always strive to be the best, because when you're the best, you're always going to be in demand. So at this point of your life, right, it's all about skill acquisition, earning and stacking wealth, continuing to network and build a name within the space that you're in. So if you think about where you're going to be at this point, you've now identified a target segment that you want to be in. You've committed to it by getting yourself in the rooms with the right people and finding mentorship. You're now in your first role, you're stacking up money, you're building your network, you're building accreditations and that brand equity within the business. The final pillar, right, and the very, very important pillar, is then taking all of this active income that you're earning and investing it into vehicles such as stocks, for example, which is my number one favorite. You've also got things like real estate, but there's reasons that I advise doing it in stocks, or certainly I chose to do it in stocks. Get your own financial advisor to figure that out, but I'll tell you why I particularly chose stocks. So now you're earning all of this active income, right? You're earning 3K, 5K, 10K, 20K a month, whatever the number is. Whatever excess you can put in, you want to put every single penny you can into stocks, right? And the reason for this is that money is then compounding for you while you are in the office or while you are doing your day-to-day work. This money is then working on your behalf while you're sitting here doing nothing. While I'm recording this video right now, my stock portfolio is compounding, because all of the companies that I've invested in, there's a CEO, a CFO, a CMO, all of these people are working in that company, building it, growing it. And as they do that, the stock price has a great opportunity to grow, to double, to triple, to quadruple. And while that happens, any money that I've invested in those companies is also doubling, quadrupling, and growing while I'm continuing to work. So if you put yourself in this situation now, you're in a role where you're continually committed to getting promotions, to earning more money, to growing and rising and ascending. as you continue to earn more and more money and more capital, the more you can put into these investment vehicles, the more they then compound on your behalf. So while you're working in your day-to-day job, you have something that's continuing to do that work, whether you're sleeping, whether you're out here right now, whether you're talking to a colleague, that money is working on your behalf. Now, when you can commit to that over weeks, over months, and over years, this is a pretty surefire way to build generational wealth, to get rich, and to put yourself in a situation where even if you're in your 30s, as you go into your 40s and your 50s, you can set yourself up to be able to live life truly on your own terms. It's very much possible that within 5 years or 10 years, you can get yourself to a position where if you do this diligently, you can have completely transformed and completely changed your life. You can go from really being in a pretty baseline situation to becoming rich, to becoming wealthy, to living life truly on your own terms. It's absolutely possible, but you need to be diligent. You need to be able to be very consistent and very disciplined with this. If you allow yourself to have lifestyle creep, which is where you continue to earn more and then you rack up more expenses and you start to create a more expensive life for yourself, that's a one-way ticket to this failing. You need to put yourself in a situation where you have the discipline that every bit of excess capital you earn, you invest, right? You don't just take that money and go and splunk it. You take that money and you invest that money and you allow it to work for you. You allow it to compound. And at that point, you can basically create a surefire situation where you go from being broke to truly becoming rich and becoming wealthy. Now, of course, is there risk in investing in stocks? Absolutely. There's risk in investing in everything. But there's a much bigger risk in you staying exactly where you are right now, broke, hopeless, and not in the situation that you know you could be and you should be in if you were actually realizing the potential that you have in your mind and in your heart and in your spirit. So what I'm encouraging you to do is to not allow another second, another day to go by where you allow yourself to just waste away. You allow yourself to just sit on the shelf. If you are 30 plus, you have an obligation to make better of your life, make better for your family, and to truly realize your potential before one day you sign out of this thing we call life. So I hope that this formula and this step-by-step has been helpful for you to put yourself in a situation where you can climb out of the hole that you might be in right now to set yourself up for a much more fruitful future. I hope that this has been helpful. If it has, do connect with me. I'll leave links in the description box below where you can reach out to me. If you have any questions, do let me know. Until then, make sure that you keep climbing, and I will see you on the next one.